Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
A blind redneck from the Ozarks and his seeing eye dog walked into a store. He grabbed the dog by the tail, picked him up over his head, and started swinging him around in a big circle. The puzzled clerk looked at the man and said, "Can I get you anything?" And the man said, "No thanks, I'm just looking around." Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America, followed by a patriot. Call in with the Pledge of Allegiance right now. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to another week. March 7th already. Zeb at the Ranch, I'm Zeb Bell with your major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and of course some of our great advertisers like Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Call, get on the route service, 734-6969. And now, without further ado, it's time for our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
You're the man. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done, my young friend. Well done. And now it's time for the weather forecast. And the weather brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Easy to find. Just look for that blue door. You better believe it. They've got all your carpet and flooring, kitchen construction, home decor items, whatever you need to make your house a home. And they've got all kinds of new flooring, tile, wood, or carpet, all the varieties and colors. Stop in and see them today. Cheney Flooring and Home Design in Burley. And here is the weather.
Here's your weather forecast as we get ready to ride in the saddle for the rest of the week. Mostly sunny skies, slightly breezy, winds out of the west, right around 8 miles an hour. Expect a high of 53 tonight, low of 31. Tomorrow, winds going to be picking up to about 14 miles out of the west, bringing with us more clouds. Partly cloudy, high of 50 with an overnight low of 33 for Tuesday. Wednesday, more clouds. Looks like a high of 53 with an overnight low of 39. Then warming up to 65 possibly, and mostly sunny for Thursday. Yesterday's high was 55. The overnight low was 35. That is your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
I appreciate it. Boy, she does a good job on that weather. Thank you, Gina. Brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. Wonderful people at Cheney Flooring and Home Design. Wow, rain yesterday. Holy moly, did it rain. And we needed it. And what a beautiful morning out there this morning. God's really blessed us. We needed the moisture, and now a good-looking day on Monday. Hey, good morning, everybody. And don't forget to Darrow's Cleaners at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. They can clean and restore your clothing, your curtains. Maybe you've got some kind of an antique, whatever it might be. You know, piece of clothing or a doily or whatever. Oh, take it in there to Darrow's Cleaners at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. That's where I take my clothes. They are the best. Kevin and Cindy and the crew at Darrow's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. You know, somebody else that we're really bragging on all the time on our program because they do a wonderful job And they've got over 10,000 customers in this area and growing daily. And that's SafeLink Internet, 677-8000. That number again, 677-8000. And believe me, they've got a very, very reliable Internet service that is absolutely something you should use for your business and your home. Call them today, SafeLink Internet, 677-8000, serving you. Well, good morning, and help me out this week, if you would, with your calls, your comments, and everything else. I really appreciate it. Sad news over the weekend. Honestly, sad news. But she had 94 years of living, really living, and that's Nancy Reagan, passing away at the age of 94 from heart failure. She was, in my opinion, the classy First Lady. She was very devoted to her husband, Ronald Reagan, and very committed to his success while he was in the presidency. And I remember vividly one time when Reagan was giving a speech, and unfortunately it was at the beginning stages of his Alzheimer's and the beginning effects, and he got into the speech, and all of a sudden some of the words left him. And Nancy Reagan was standing right beside him, and you probably in the audience remember this occasion. And she looked down so as to not be very conspicuous, and she just basically helped him with the words. She was his helpmate, and a great lady. Some say she was feisty, but all was fair. So our condolences to the family, but what a great lady. Nancy Reagan passing away at the age of 94. She really was truly a First Lady. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget our friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. They throw open the doors at 7:30 in the morning till 5 Monday through Friday. And you know, they have got all your heating and electrical needs. Need something, I mean, by golly, and you're in a hurry? Well, call them. Call ahead at 678-0459, and they'll have it waiting for you on the counter. Run in, pay, gone, you're back in the field, whatever. Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they provide warm winters and cold, cool summers. They're good folks. Ramsey Heating and Electric, serving you. Also, want to remind you, too, that Lunch Bunch for March, this is very important, now pay attention to this, is going to be next NEXT week on St. Patrick's Day, the 17th. Yes, everybody wear green. And where are we going to wear green? At Denny's Restaurant. 611 Overland in Burley, 291 Pole Line in Twin Falls, 2 locations. America's Diner. It doesn't get any better than this. Let me tell you, the food, the portions, the service, everybody, it's just fantabulous. You're going to love it, whether you go in there for breakfast, lunch, and or dinner, or anytime. Anytime. I said it's America's Diner, serving you. Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley. It is good. All right, give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. We've got a bunch of news notes here to make this morning. First of all, a little bit later on today, Peyton Manning will announce formally that he is retiring from an 18-year pro football career. Watch that kid. When he was in college at the University of Tennessee, and that shows how old I am, and remember all of his accolades and achievements, and then, of course, going to the Indianapolis Colts and then to the Denver Broncos, and he goes out on top. He goes out on top as a Super Bowl champion. Really, had he stayed another year, and very possibly could have been traded from the Broncos because of the salary caps, etc., but he went out on top as a Super Bowl champion, and there is nothing better than that to wrap up a career and head out the door. But But you can imagine, with all of his pitchman attitudes that he has, with all the contracts on various commercials, whether it's for insurance companies, whether it's for Papa John's Pizza, whether it's for any business, he's going to have numerous offers that are going to take care of him and his family very well for the rest of his life. But a lot of people have said that maybe he will take over the ownership of an NFL team. And yesterday I heard them talking about the Tennessee Titans and also possibly the Cleveland Browns football team. And I told my wife, I says, no, I don't think so. I said, maybe I'm dead wrong on this. But there is an allegiance to the New Orleans Saints from where his dad played. And I do know that there's been some talk about a sale from the Saints ownership right now, and I would not be surprised if maybe Peyton Manning and the family would take over the New Orleans Saints. Anyway, today is his retirement day after 18 illustrious years in the NFL. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I sure appreciate hearing from you. While I'm waiting for your call, I also want to remind you about our friends at Minnecasia Sales. They bring you Dr. History on Tuesdays at 10:06. And we're looking forward to that show tomorrow. Going to be really interesting. By the way, if you're getting some money back on your tax returns and you're going to do a little remodeling of your house, etc., don't forget Minnecasia Sales. My goodness, old Zach and the rest of the crew, they can really help you. And I understand that they also have a lot of carpet over there, too, along with the western windows and all the Tartar Farm and Ranch gates and panels, everything at Minnecasia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley. There you go. Your turn. Come on now, don't leave me hanging, folks. Let's get some calls coming in here at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. You know what really bugs me is what's going on in our society today. You absolutely cannot have, do, or say anything regarding Christianity, and you have people coming out of the woodwork or underneath the rocks to yell, scream, and holler about that. And a lot of states have said no to personalized license plates that have a Christian connotation, you know, with references to God and Jesus or the Bible. But do you know what the state of Missouri okayed on a license plate? This is nuts. Jihad 1. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. I saw it. It was on television. A license plate that says Jihad 1. And that's okay? Really? Our society is turned upside down. Calls, welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Oh, by the way, in case you missed it, Marco Rubio finally won something, and that was Puerto Rico. He won the primary over in Puerto Rico. Yippee-ki-yay. And Marco... Turn down the house lights, man. It's time to get out of the race. I don't think he's doing anything but just being in the way. I know a lot of you might not agree with that, but I think it is now just a two-man race between Trump and Cruz. I want to say something here that I didn't say last week on the program, but I think it's time. I think it's time to let the cat out of the bag. I absolutely respect the fact that Donald Trump got into the Republican race. I respect the fact that Donald Trump contributed so much by being into the race as far as bringing voters and enthusiasm into politics, and especially the GOP. I respect that. But I'm going to have to come out and say this morning that as far as political motivation, and as far as political savvy and know-how and possibly sticking with and adhering to the Constitution, There are a few fears that I have about Donald Trump. Now, I had over the weekend quite a few people say, well, who are you going to advocate for? Who are you going to stand up for? The primary in Idaho is on Tuesday, tomorrow. Well, I looked at all this, and I have to be very honest. I'm sick and tired of the establishment. There is no way in the world I would not like to just go back there with a big broom and a dustpan and clean out the entire mess. But I've got to hand it to Ted Cruz for his ability to, even though he's not liked by the establishment, even though he's not liked by his peers, keep on keeping on. And I like that attitude. He doesn't care if he's liked by the ones that are sitting in the Senate with him. He does care about the people that he works for back home and, of course, across the United States. And I do like his constitutional value system. So you can take it from there. I have concerns about Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump should receive a lot of accolades for what he's done as far as stimulating the political process. If he is the nominee, which it looks like he may be, this program will support him to the hilt. Because any one person is 10 times better than the likes of the criminal that we will get as a nominee on the Democratic side. That being Hillary Clinton. Your thoughts, please, are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Please give me a call. I want to hear it. Caller, I'll be right there. Stand by. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. I'm going to start going back there this week. I told you I would. Nick Greenwell, physical therapist, and all the physical therapists there, they really know all the exercises, all the sports medicine. They've got the hydrotherapy pool, the only one of its kind, and they can help you get back to being and feeling like you. Wonderful people at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 678-1191. You call them today. Caller, thank you. Good morning. You're on the air.
Well, good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Good, thank you. Go ahead.
Hey, I wanted to, talking about Trump and Cruz, if Trump gets the nomination, like you all support him, I'll support anybody, as you said, because we need a good president for once in a while, but I still have my reservations about Trump, and I guess what it comes down to is I really would like to hear one of these presidential candidates voice their opinion on public lands being owned by the state instead of the federal government, placing the power back to the state where it belongs so we can work as a people to improve our state.
Well, I'll say this, Riley. I want a lot of more, let's say, devoted attitude to the subjects. And I don't want to hear just a gruff exterior. I don't want to hear just kind of a, well, this is the way it's going to be when I'm president attitude. I want to hear more of an explanation. And quite frankly, when I listen to the two, and I know some people are going to think I'm turning against Trump. No, I'm not. I'm just voicing an opinion on personalities and what I think can be done when they hopefully ascertain the office of the presidency. I think that Ted Cruz, quite frankly, is my selection over Trump purely because of a attitude and of a ability to explain the subject matter so that you know where he stands.
I agree with you. He seems to me when Cruz is talking, it's easier to understand what his ultimate goal is, where he's coming from, where he's going, and there's not a whole lot of rhetoric in between. Yeah. When Trump talks, it's a whole lot of hot air, along with what he's talking about, what he'd like to do, but there's really not much there other than I'm going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. Well, how are you going to make that happen? How are you going to get all the illegals out of the U.S. so they can come back legally? You know, there's no explanation there.
Well, we need explanations right now more than ever, and I agree with you. And Riley, I thank you for breaking the ice this morning and being the first call. Thank you very much.
Well, you have Have a good day, my friend.
I will. Thank you very much. I think that was a good way to start things off this morning. I just want to hear more definition. I want to hear what's going to happen so that you and I and every voter in America can say, well, wait a minute, Mr. Trump or Mr. Cruz, you said this regarding immigration, or you said this regarding the economy, or you said this regarding Obamacare, or you said this regarding North Korea. We need more definition. Now, I don't want the Trump supporters in the audience to just go all of a sudden, well, that's it, Bill. I thought he was a Trump man, and now he's turning coat. No, wait a minute. You've never heard me advocate anybody until this morning. But I will say it again and again and again, that I think that Donald Trump's getting into the presidential race this year was absolutely a great thing for politics. And it was a great thing for the Republican Party, even though some of the dimwits that are leaders of the party don't see that. The stimulation of voters is absolutely important for this election. Now, again, going back to the point I made a moment ago, if Trump is the nominee, I will absolutely get on this program every day and support him and really push him. I do not want, nor can I accept, the absolute left-wing, very liberal, tear America down attitude of Hillary Clinton. It should fear all of us. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Hey, by the way, I want to tell you about Berry Equipment and Rental, 3 locations to serve you. Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, and of course on South Lincoln and Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. They have all the Coyote tractors. I love those Coyote tractors. I'm telling you what, they've got a great selection at all 3 locations, 25 horsepower and up. And they got a great deal on a 3510 with a loader, just $19,450. Yes, a 3510 with a loader, just $19,450. It's absolutely a great buy, great warranty, and super financing available at Berry Equipment and Rental. Stop in and see them today. Addison Avenue West, Twin Falls, and South Lincoln and Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Berry Equipment and Rental. Come on, calls are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. What do you think, honestly, the way things are kind of shaken out right now? 2-man race. I think as of the next couple of days, I think Marco Rubio, he might stay. He might stay in there until after Florida on the 15th, the primary in Florida. But I'll make a prediction there. I think that he is going to really lose in Florida. I don't think he's going to cut the cake. And then it's time to fold the tent. What are your thoughts? 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Come on, give me a call. By the way, while I'm waiting for your calls, I hope are coming in. If you're noticing that you're having a hearing problem, and what's going on here? I didn't hear that, or I had to turn the sound up on the TV quite a bit, or the alarm clock, I'm having trouble hearing it, whatever. You had better make an appointment with Dr. Christine Pickup at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, and let her find out what the problem is. Could be something to do with medication. Could be something to do with some of your health problems. Well, you'd better check it out. Call 312-0957 today. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, right across from the Minidoka Hospital Emergency Room. Mount Harrison Audiology, helping you with your hearing. I am in the mood right now to give away a half dozen delicious, absolutely fantastic cinnamon rolls from Sophie's Chatterbox at 530 East Street in Rupert. Oh my goodness, and now's the time to order your sugar cookies for St. Patrick's Day. Sophie, make me a great big sugar cookie. I love sugar cookies. Oh, now's a great time to order those for St. Patrick's Day at Sophie's Chatterbox. Great restaurant, great bakery, 530 East Street in Rupert. And here's the question. for a first-time winner only. Don't you cheat. First-time winners only. And it's an easy question this morning. And the reason it's an easy question is because I forgot about asking a question this morning earlier to myself, and I had to come up with this. And you may know the answer right off the bat. In the television series Gunsmoke, one of the most famous Western, and for that matter, all-time TV series, what was Chester's last name in the series? What was Chester's last name in the series? First person to call with the right answer is going to win a half dozen delicious cinnamon rolls. And all you have to do is call the number over at Sophie's at 436-0354. Let them know when you're going to go pick them up. Let's see what this caller says. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Is it Littlefoot?
No, it's not. Nope, don't keep going. That's one answer to a person. Nope, that's not it. Thank you. But maybe it's a little tougher than I thought it was. I thought everybody knew the answer to this. What was Chester's last name in the TV series Gunsmoke? And occasionally on various shows, Matt Dillon would always say, and this is my Deputy Chester, and he'd say the last name. So what was the last name of Chester on Gunsmoke for first-time winners only for the half dozen cinnamon rolls? Come on! I know a lot of people are going to their computer, Gunsmoke, Chester. Oh, there it is. Anyhow, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Hurry and give me a call. Come on, quickly! What was Chester's last name in Gunsmoke? My goodness! I thought that would be an easy one. Give me a call real fast, 436-2244. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Was it Mr. Hagen?
No, it was not. Thank you very much for your try. I appreciate it. Oh, my goodness. Calls, come on, let's go. We've talked about Chester before, and let's see what this caller has to say. Go ahead, caller. What was Chester's last name?
Wasn't he Chester Good?
Well, my goodness, this sounds like... Well, lady, introduce yourself. Who is this?
Chris Hondo.
Well, I thought so. And she's now the lady with the cinnamon rolls. You win.
Oh, boy, my husband will like that. How soon can I go?
You call them. You call them and let them know when you want them, and they'll have them ready for you.
Oh, okay.
Now, let me ask you this.
That shows my age.
What's that?
That shows my age. I grew up on Gunsmoke.
Okay, but did you know it, or did you have to go look it up?
No, I knew it.
You knew that it was...
I came to myself.
All right.
Yeah.
You knew that it was Chester Good, right?
Good.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you a quick question to see if you remember. Which leg was he limping on?
I think it was his left leg.
No.
Well, see.
It was his right leg, and do you know why? Do you know why do you know why in the series they had him limp on the right leg?
No.
So that he could get on a horse.
Oh.
Seriously.
It would have been a little hard, wouldn't it?
Yep, seriously.
Yeah. Well, you would know that.
All right, well,
I knew his name.
Congratulations, you are the winner this morning, and call over there and they'll have them ready for you.
Okay, I will.
All right, thank you very much. You bet, thank you. Chris Hondo, the winner, and the answer, of course, Chester Good. Old Matt would sit there and he'd say, well, now here's my deputy, Chester Good. There you go. All right, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I want to remind you, tomorrow's a big day. Tomorrow is a big day. It's Idaho Primary Day. And a lot of you might say, oh, come see, come saw about the Idaho primary. But there's another reason, especially in Cassia County, to go to the polls, and that's because of the Cassia County school bond election. Very, very important and very necessary, and I urge you to go to the polls tomorrow on Tuesday, the 8th, for that purpose. It's not only primary day, but it's election day for that Cassia County school bond election. Do not forget that, please. Over the weekend, I feel like we lost a friend. And I'm not talking about Nancy Reagan. That was a sad story that we talked about earlier, her passing away at 94 years of age. But another lady passed away on this weekend, and you may not have known her. You may not have heard of her. But my wife and I were big fans of this lady. She was a fantastic singer, and she was a fantastic Christian, and a very, very good mother. I'm talking about Joey Feek. And a lot of you might say, who is Joey Feek? Well, I follow country music a lot. And due to the fact that I've been involved with the rodeo business almost all my life for over 50 years, Joey and Rory were the singing group husband and wife. And I really enjoyed their music. I really enjoyed them. And long story short, Rory Feek, songwriter and musician and singer, he had quite a career in Nashville and had written a lot of big songs and everything. But his career never took off, and he divorced from his first wife, and he stayed around Nashville. Well, all of a sudden, here comes a young lady by the name of Joey Martin. And she had a voice that just absolutely was beautiful. It sounded like an angel singing. Well, they sang on a couple of records together, got married, and absolutely a love affair, and had a little 2-year-old girl, and all of a sudden the roof caved in. And she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I got to tell you, there was an interview not too long ago with Mr. Bill Gaither of the Gaither Gospel Hour. And Bill Gaither sat down with both Joey and Rory, and they were very, very open about Joey's cancer. They were very, very open about how she was going to refuse any more treatment and just go to spend her remaining days at home. And it was one of the, and I'm not ashamed to admit this at all, I had brought tears to my eyes, and they stayed in my eyes, watching and listening to two people, a husband and wife, as they literally were saying goodbye to each other. And their commitment to their religion, commitment to their God. And she passed away this weekend after quite a stay at home. And it really got to me. She was an amazing singer. If you ever had a chance to listen to some of her songs, she just absolutely had the smoothest, most velvet voice that I don't think ever really got the national acclaim that it should have. But she passed away this last weekend. And a real sad note. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Please give me a jingle. Also want to remind you about our friend Doug at Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair at 635 21st Street. That's Alfresco Road in Heyburn. Hello, Doug. I'll tell you what, he bought the business back in 2009, and it was Ted's Diesel Electric Service, and he's just changed the name to his own, Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. Same great service, just a different name. He can fix everything, rebuilding starters, alternators, generators, and also sells brand new Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. You give him a call, 878-4991. Okay, folks, your turn. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Also, wanted to mention, here we are being held at bay again by the fat little punk, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, threatening the United States, threatening South Korea, threatening our involvement and our troops in South Korea, and basically telling the White House what he is going to do and hold us as potential nuclear hostages. This is a clear-cut case of take him out. Now, a lot of you liberals in the audience this morning might be saying, oh, well, you can't do that. Why, that's terrible. You know what? All it takes is just a little pushing, a little prodding by the absolute brainless twits in the world today. And then here's a loose cannon loaded like Kim Jong-un that will all of a sudden reach down and pull the trigger. And then it's way too late. He is a threat to decency and a threat to humanity and should be taken out. Your thoughts, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Want to also remind you about Kevin at Certified Pest Control. Hey, you know, I tell you about this every day last week on my program, and it's really true. That we called Certified Pest Control and got a hold of Kevin and said, hey, we are being overrun over here with absolute pests that are into everything, all the voles, all the mice, everything. I said, what's going on? He said, well, you're having the same problem a lot of people are having. They just moved in. Well, he came over, and believe me, the problem is solved. That man really knows what he's doing. Kevin at Certified Pest Control, 219-7576. Or you can go to his website, avoidbugs.com, and he's just as good as the big boys at half the price. And he can help you. Timing is critical right now to make sure you get rid of the weeds on your property, the puncture vine, the goat heads, everything else, and get that spraying done. He can help. He will help. Certified Pest Control, 219-7576. You call Kevin and get him on the job for you today. Really good, folks. My goodness, did everybody sleep in this morning? And give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. The Democratic debate last night, a yawner. You know, really, Hillary and Bernie. Now, when you look at them, on the one side you got old Bernie, and white frizzy hair and the hand motions. If you tied Bernie's hands down for 1 minute, 60 seconds, he couldn't say a word. He couldn't say a word. And here he is, a communist, a socialist, absolutely wants to spend just way more of your money and my money to try to make a utopia for socialism. And then on the other hand, you have Hillary Clinton. I mean, this is almost to the point of laughing at the Democrats for the poorness of quality of human beings that they are running on their possible nominee list to go for president. The raucous, absolutely disgusting voice of Hillary and her attitude and her laugh. And good morning, caller. Help me. Thank you very much.
You're beyond help, young man.
I don't know about that. Thanks, my friend.
Anytime. Yeah, they talk about the Republican deal being a schoolyard brawl. I think it was who was trying to lie the most on that one.
Yeah, but Doug, wait a minute. What good, honestly, what good came out of Sanders and Clinton's debate when you know as well as I do? It's not going to change anything. It's not going to change the structure of how people are going to vote for the primaries. You know as well as I do that it's a slam dunk done deal for Hillary. You know as well as I do we're going to be stuck with that raucous magpie voice of hers for the next 4 to 5 months before the election. I mean, it was a waste of time.
Well, it was, and I'd like to see, if she's the anointed one, and heaven forbid she gets elected, how's she going to be able to carry out her duties from Leavenworth?
Yeah, well, I can only hope. I can only wish. I know a lot of people are going to be incensed about this, but that woman just absolutely is she's like bug spray. She's repellent to me. I just can't stand that voice. I can't stand that attitude, that holier than thou, standing there in a pantsuit. I don't think I can weather the storm for 4 years of her presidency.
Well, I couldn't weather looking at her pantsuit for 4 years.
I got to tell you this. I had a very dear friend get on the phone with me last night, and it was really kind of comical, and I started chuckling. He said, "You realize what's going to happen if Hillary is elected president?" And I said, "What?" And he says, "Canada's going to build a wall to keep all of us out."
I agree with that.
I thought that was a great line.
I heard you talking about Mrs. Reagan this morning.
Yes.
My condolences with the family. She was a wonderful woman. And I don't know if you touched on the obituary that was in the New York Times.
I didn't get on to that this morning because I kind of made up my own thoughts about her, how helpful she was to Ronald, and I mentioned at one time, and it was very telling, that he was in the preliminary stages of having Alzheimer's, and he was giving a speech, and he got lost, and she stood next to him and basically mouthed the words to help him. I mean, she was an amazing lady.
She was. Now that is love and devotion to the end.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a lot of marriages can take some pages out of their book, and this is how to make a happy, long marriage.
Absolutely.
That deal in the New York Times was it was degrading her. I mean, ripping her apart.
Well, I talked to a gentleman back in Washington this morning. Now, I got to tell you, Doug, I did not read it in its entirety. I just saw some of the highlights. What was the most degrading but yet infuriating to you part of it that you didn't care for?
Well, how she was spending so lavishly in the White House when there was high unemployment, that yet they don't look at the recent White House and their vacation budgets, when if the true numbers were in, we would be at 14% unemployment or higher.
Absolutely.
And this is what infuriates me. What's good for the goose isn't good for the gander.
Well,
the door doesn't swing both ways with them.
Yeah, but let's take a look at this quickly, and then I've got to get a weather forecast on here. What about Jackie Kennedy? What about Michelle Obama? What about any of the president's wives as far as being fashion statements? No, I'm serious.
Jacqueline Kennedy was a classy lady.
Yeah.
And we was proud to have her. And so was Mrs. Reagan.
But the point I'm getting at with what you just said is the New York Times was really going after her because of her lavish clothes, etc. Whoa, wait a minute. What about Michelle? What about Jackie Kennedy? I mean, there's no distinction against just Ronald Reagan's wife, Nancy.
But that's who they was going
after. I know.
They never mentioned the others that were in the same boat, and most all of them are a little bit that way when they're in there, but not as much as this one here. I mean, who has a concert at the White House for a select few people with Beyonce and a whole bunch of other or what they call famous people?
Yeah, one thing though about Hillary that we can't say anything negative about. You can't say that Hillary has spent a lot of money on clothes, because she goes and gets those Walmart pantsuits and she's got all colors.
I hear that.
All right. I got to get the weather on, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Now, that's one thing about old Hillary. She hasn't really developed a good clothing line. Hey, the weather is brought to us by Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service. And boy, now's the time to emphasize you to call them for pruning and all your tree service, like removal of stumps and hazardous tree removal, and even planting of trees. Oh, they're good. They're good. Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service, 336 South, 450 West of Paul. Number to call, 431-8733. And don't forget, they put in sprinkler systems. They are the best. Gano Landscaping and sprinkler service. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Here's your weather forecast as we get ready to ride in the saddle for the rest of the week. Mostly sunny skies, slightly breezy, winds out of the west, right around 8 miles an hour. Expect a high of 53 tonight, low 31 tomorrow. Winds going to be picking up to about 14 miles out of the west, bringing with it some more clouds. Partly cloudy, high of 50 with an overnight low of 33 for Tuesday. Wednesday, more clouds. Looks like a high of 53 with an overnight low of 39, then warming up to 65 possibly, and mostly sunny for Thursday. Yesterday's high was 55. The overnight low was 35. That is your weather for Zeb at the Ranch. I
appreciate it, Gina. Thank you. And brought to you by Gannett Landscaping and Sprinkler Service. 336 South, 450 West of Paul. Call 431-8733. By the way, don't forget on Thursdays, we got a brand new segment on our program. Yes, it started last week, and it's Urgent Care of Twin Falls, and they're telling you all about how you can better yourself and your family knowing about Urgent Care of Twin Falls, Jerome, and Burley. And we want to thank Kyle and the crew. That's going to be on Thursdays at 9:12. Don't you miss it, right here on Zeb at the Ranch. You know, I pick a lot at the Times News. Now, there have been those that after the program is over, they'll call me on my cell phone at 312-2976. See, I'm not a coward. I'll give you the number. And they'll say, oh, you got to quit hammering at the Times News. No, I don't. You know, I got to laugh at this, and you'll find the humor in this also. And many of you, I'm sure, saw this. But the Times News is sponsoring a second annual Times News Regional Spelling Bee today at 6 p.m. But why can't they practice what they preach and understand that spelling is important in their newspaper? Here is the headline in the front page story about truckers' jobs in the paper this past weekend. And they spelled trucker Tucker. Gee, Times News, why don't you enter your own second annual Times News Regional Spelling Bee? And the first word tonight at 6 p.m. will be Times News. How do you spell trucker? See if you can get it right. Does anybody proofread anything anymore? Front page headline, the sub-headline, talking about truckers' jobs. And it's not spelled correctly. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Also want to talk to you about our friends at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations. Man, they are busy. Every day they're busy. And every day they're helping people with front-end alignments, shocks and struts, and, of course, the best in brake service and the best in batteries. But above all, the best in tires. Here we are at March 7th, and of course a lot of us are saying, come on spring and summer. Well, you need tires for your cars, your pickups, your SUVs, your horse trailers, your boat trailers. Yep, that's optimal thinking. And they've got them all for you. All the different tires, all the different tread designs, and believe me, these folks at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, they've all graduated with a degree in tireology. They know tires. You stop in and see Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. Yes, sirree, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. You stop in and see them today. Don't forget the big vote tomorrow. Yes, very important for this area. Cassia County School Bond election tomorrow, along with it being Idaho Primary Day. Don't forget that. And let's see what else have we got coming in here that you need to know about real quick. Oh, and congratulations. and I mean this sincerely, congratulations to all the schools, whether they won, whether they placed in consolation rounds, whether they just went there and maybe didn't have the best state championship and best state tournament. But congratulations to all the schools, the high schools, that qualified for the boys basketball tournament. Congrats to you. And if you didn't win, by golly, better luck next year. Okay. Coming up next hour, we've got an interview with the new manager of the Golden Heritage Senior Center, and she's going to tell us all about the new innovative ideas and everything that's going on over there. And then at 9:30, a story that is absolutely, it's got me so mad this morning. South Dakota governor has given his blessing to mixed locker rooms, boys and girls. What is going on with what's right and wrong in this country? We're going to take a little break right now and send it back over to Wheels and have the CBS News. We'll be back in 6. Don't you go away. Zeb at the Ranch. Oh, here we are. Look outside at that blue sky. What's the temperature outside? Let me take a look here real quick. And 39. Going to get up to about maybe 51 today. We're going to have the weather in a little bit, and we'll tell you more. Good morning, everybody, and Zeb at the Ranch, of course, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. And, of course, some of our great advertisers like Western Way Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Way Services, we care about our community, our resources, and history's land. Western Way Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal.
I'll tell you what, when they say always at your disposal, they mean it. You know, they've got all the porta potties. Let's talk porta potties. There's a nice subject. We're going to talk porta potties for your parties or maybe your family reunions or maybe the great big company picnic or whatever it is. You know, they can absolutely have everything set up just right for you. Please, the portable restrooms, the hand wash stations, they've got them all. All you have to do is give a call to 734-6969, Western Way Services. Locally owned and operated. Absolutely the best, ladies and gentlemen. It's their business to take care of your business. Please call them today, 734-6969. Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Hey, by the way, too, don't forget, every morning we sign on and we're ready and raring to go with the weather forecast brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design. They have doubled their amount of tile, and it's at a cheaper rate right now for you, for the beautification of your home. Please get a hold of them today, Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door or give them a call at 678-6945. Before we get our guest on the program this morning, I also want to remind you about some really, really dear friends of ours. Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert with Joel Heward, his family, and his staff serving you. You know, there is nothing more traumatic than when there's the passing of a loved one and the rest of the family just absolutely doesn't know what to do, how to get it done in a very short time. Please, please, let them help. All you have to do for more information is to call 436-5636. They always treat you and your family with the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Call them today. Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. That number again, 436-5636. Well, let's go to the telephone right now and talk to the brand new manager of the Golden Heritage Senior Center. Catherine, how are you? Catherine Walcroft. Good to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you, Zeb. We're doing well.
Well, you know, I was really impressed with your personality when we met over a week ago, and I think you really see the benefit of the Golden Heritage and the future. And tell us a little bit about some of the changes that you hope are going to be made for the better.
Well, right now we are focusing on our Meals on Wheels program, which is really the bread and butter of the senior center, and we're trying to reach those seniors out there that have not been reached yet. So we've got a big push out there. Dennis Babbitt is going out and trying to find those people that we are not reaching through their church organizations or so forth, and I think that is the biggest change right now, is that we are really going to promote that. And
okay. Now, let me ask you this, Catherine, and you and I need you to talk up just a little bit, or I'll have Wheels at the main studio turn her up just a little bit more. But what are the percentages of people that maybe could get Meals on Wheels, but they haven't asked about it? I mean, are there a lot of people that still are not aware that they could qualify?
There are quite a few. You know, each day in America, 10,000 people reach their 65th birthday. 10,000 each day. And, you know, with healthcare advances over the last couple of decades, we live longer lives. And Meals on Wheels is really important in keeping people in their homes longer, where they're comfortable, around people that they love. And there are people who are not just seniors. Meals on Wheels is not just for the seniors, the old, the aged, decrepit, sick. It's for people who may have had surgery and can't get out to the grocery store, can't prepare their own meals. It's for the disabled who have a hard time, taking those steps in normal everyday lives. And so there's a vast opportunity out there for people to get help that they so dearly need.
You know, the attitude of the Meals on Wheels and the reasoning behind it are absolutely heartwarming, but it takes money. It takes a lot of money. Now, how much is helped by the federal or the state government to defray the costs?
Well, you know, we do get some reimbursement through the Office on Aging, through those people who are on Medicaid, and they do reimburse us, roughly $5 for each meal that we prepare and deliver. It takes more than that for us to get those meals cooked and prepared and packaged and then delivered out to them. So, it's a real need for us to do some fundraising for that. And, right now we have the Next Meal campaign that we are focused on, meaning that for $5 donation, you can provide the next meal for a senior in your area.
You know, I sit here, and over the many, many years of this program, we've been involved in having as one of our charities that we'd like to help and promote the Meals on Wheels. But it's so sad to me to think that there are shut-ins that basically, Catherine, that knock on the door with the Meals on Wheels representative is basically, in some cases, the only human contact those people are going to have for that entire day. Is that right?
It is, and that's really a lifeline. We can lay eyes on them each day to make sure that they are coherent, that they have not fallen. We can check on them and see if there are any other needs that they need met that are not being met. And sometimes it's just the only friendly face they see all day. People, don't come around as often, and it's just nice to know that someone out there cares. And that's an important part of this program. It really is.
Yeah, but it's deeper than that. It's human contact with human beings that really care. And when I heard you mention the name Dennis Babbitt, Dennis is one of the nicest, warmest human beings we've ever met. And people like him that are taking the time to help be a Meals on Wheels representative. Is it hard to find people that will help with the Meals on Wheels project?
Well, yes, it is. Most Meals on Wheels projects have volunteers who deliver the meals. And unfortunately, in our area, we had a lack of volunteers, so we've had to hire people that can go out and deliver those meals every day. We need to make sure that they're done, and that we have the bodies here to do that.
Well, I want to go back to the numbers a little bit. You said something to me the other day, and it really kind of astounded me, that there are so many more right here in this area that could qualify and should be getting a Meal on Wheels. What do they do? How do they let people know? What's the procedure?
Well, it starts with a phone call. A family member, a concerned neighbor, or the person themselves just needs to call the senior center. Our number is 208-878-8646. Mm-hmm. And we can either get them in touch with the Office on Aging to get qualified through their program, or we can see about if they have Medicaid or the Blue Cross product that pays for meals being delivered. There's also private pay. If anybody, needs just a short-term help, they've had surgery, can't get around, they can always just pay by a private manner so that, they have those nutritious meals each day.
Now, what about the meals themselves? Let's talk a little bit about that. They're all prepared right there at your senior center. Wow, I can attest that the food there is fantastic. Talk a little bit about the preparation.
Well, the preparation, we have lunch that we serve here every day at the senior center, and everyone is welcome. It's not just for old people. Everyone is welcome to come and have lunch. But we prepare the meals and then we package them in a container with a saran wrap lid that keeps them hot or frozen until they need to be used. Mm-hmm. And so, like today, we're having liver and onions, which is a huge favorite among our population out here, and red potatoes, carrots, rolls, fruit, and a dessert. They're very nutritious, and our cook, Debbie, is amazing. It is so tasty and so delicious. It's really more than any one person probably needs in one meal, but we do make sure that they get that one hot meal a day.
Catherine, I will say this, and I want to get your response on this part of it. All the time on any radio program or any television show, public service, etc., they're always asking for money for maybe a new baseball diamond or maybe uniforms for kids in soccer or whatever the case might be. But my attitude has been that the senior citizens, not only just here but across the country, they've been forgotten about, and believe me, there is money and projects that we should be involved in to help them. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Even with the Idaho Food Bank and the vast program and people that they reach, really, the seniors are not being reached. They're overlooked. They're just a demographic that people don't really think about. When you think about donating food to the food bank, you think about families with children, other things. You don't think about the elderly in this, in this area at all.
Right.
And that is what we're really trying to focus on, is trying to get people to understand that these elderly are senior citizens of this county, in this area, all across America, are being overlooked, and they're not easily to come out and ask for help.
One thing I wanted to mention to you this morning, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot at all because I know you're the new manager over there, but I will say this. I think that our legislators, our congressmen and our senators from the state of Idaho have been much more helpful than most in other states when it comes to being supportive of seniors and senior issues. But it boils down to money. And quite frankly, you need money to run the Meals on Wheels and also money to keep the senior center open. Where does all that money come from?
It comes from those people who donate to the senior center. It comes from corporate businesses who want to partner up with us and keep us afloat. It's with the county commissioners and the city managers, and all of those great people out there who are listening to your program, who can take the time and send whatever they can in. That's how it's going to work, hand to hand. Everyone together.
No, you as the new director, I mean, you're kind of like stepping off the end of the pier into deep water. I mean, my goodness, did you know all of these various subjects had to be addressed? Did you know about the money situation? Did you know that we've got to get a whole bunch of money to keep these projects going before you accepted this job?
I had a little idea. I've worked with the elderly in my former life as a caregiver and as an activities director at an assisted living facility, and I know that money is always an issue. It usually is in any business. I was not quite informed as to the state that this center was in when I took over, and frankly, it was a little overwhelming at first, and I just had to dig in, and I want these people here at the senior center and in our county and our city to know that I'm here for the long haul, and I want to see this program be very successful. And I think that it takes, great minds need to come together and support those people who can't do for themselves. So,
I said something to you the other day at a meeting, and I'm not at all ashamed to mention it on the air and get your response too. But people hear, senior center, well, that's just for old people, the ones on the wheelchairs, the ones on the walkers. Wait a minute, stop the bus, Gus. That's a misconception, because there's a lot of youth, a lot of vibrancy, there's a lot of great ideas, there's a lot of people that are still contributing to our society and our economy. How can we better portray that picture to the bulk of the people so they better understand what's going on?
Well, I think that it's just, the word needs to get out that it's not just, we're not just for old people sitting in a rocking chair staring out at the blue sky. And I say we, I just turned 50, and so I'm part of that aging population. We need the word to get out that we come together and socialize and play cards and play billiards and bingo and just, a ton of things that are absolutely fun, and we have a community breakfast coming up on the 19th. Everybody is welcome at lunches, at any of our fundraisers, at our breakfasts once a month that we have. We would love to have everyone come. And it is a vibrant community here. They have a lot to give. They have a lot of love and concern, and not to mention all the great stories of way back in a simpler day, how things were done, and I just think that it's fascinating to sit and talk to them.
And one other side of the coin, though, that needs to be mentioned, Catherine, and I think you'll agree with me on this too. It's great to say we need help, we need people to get involved, etc. But on the other side of that coin, I would bet that there are at least 80% of the seniors that are involved in that senior center. They also are capable of getting out and spreading the word and helping their own cause. It takes both sides of the fence to make something be successful.
Absolutely. We, I think that we're getting there. We've got a newsletter. I know people are taking them to their neighbors and just word of mouth, inviting them out to some of the funner activities and the lunches, and we are just so proud of the service that we give here to the community, and we want to keep that going, and we appreciate all the support we can get from anyone.
Now, let's kind of break this down a little bit. If people would like to contribute to the Meals on Wheels and also be contributory towards the Golden Heritage Senior Center, where do they call? Who do they call? Give us all that information.
All right. They can call me, Catherine Walcroft. The number here at the center is 208-878-8646. And our mailing address is P.O. Box 395, Burley, Idaho, 83318.
And if they have questions, they can stop in. I mean, what are your hours over there that maybe you're in your office, that maybe somebody's driving down the road right now and says, hey, I'd like to contribute $500 or $1,000 to Meals on Wheels. Where are you located? And give a landmark and then also your hours.
We are located at 2421 Overland Avenue, and we are open from 7:30 in the morning until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we are across the street from Ace Hardware.
Okay. I know it's a big undertaking. I know that you really got a lot of obstacles ahead that are blocking maybe what you would call success. But I'll tell you something, we're going to keep hammering away, and I'm really dedicated on this program to supporting you as the Senior Center and then also the Meals on Wheels, Catherine. We'll do all we can from this program.
Thank you, Zab. We sure appreciate it.
Well, now you just hang tough, and we'll see you in a couple days and come back and talk to us next week at the same time, okay?
I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I give a lot of time and effort to that group called the Senior Citizens. Yeah, I know. You're sitting there going, well, you are one now. Yes, I am. But there's nothing sadder to me and brings tears to my eyes quicker when I think of some senior citizen, maybe a grandfather or a grandma, sitting in a chair all by themselves in that big house, and their family no longer takes the time and the effort to go see them or call them. Oh, they're all too busy. But yet, there's a knock on the door, and at noontime, there is the Meals on Wheels representative providing them a hot meal, maybe a little companionship, maybe a little friendly, how are you doing today? Hey, did you hear about this, that, and other? A little friendly response back and forth that just lights the fire in them to live another day, enjoy another day. That's what it's all about. And this program will do all it can to support the Meals on Wheels program. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget, let's ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. I got to call over there and find out how my machines are. I think they're ready, and I got to go pick them up. I can't wait to get them home. If you got ATVs, you don't know how much you miss them when the weather's good and they're over being serviced for the spring and summer. This past weekend, Deanna and I said, let's go for a ride. Oops, can't. They're over at Let's Ride. I forgot about that. I got to go get them. Where the fun is sold. Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24. And believe me, now's the time to service your ATVs, dirt bikes, boats without a K, it's boats. And make sure, too, that while you're there, if you need new machines and you're looking for new machines, what a great inventory they have to serve you at Let's Ride. Yep, stop over and see them today where the fun is sold. Wonderful people over there. By the by, if you're over in that neck of the woods, not many trees over there, but in that neck of the desert, don't forget Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Life insurance, very important. Make sure that you're all up to speed. Health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits. Well, the people that are in the office over there, they really care. They are dedicated to serving you, making sure you're covered. Please take down this number and give them a call for an appointment, 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424. 866-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Really, really good folks. I got a public service announcement here I've got to get on real quick. The Rupert United Methodist Church at 605 H Street in Rupert is presenting a live production of The Living Last Supper, and it's going to be with a narrator. It's going to be on Holy Thursday, March 24th at 7 p.m. And the Chancel Choir, featuring Rob Newman as soloist and Judy Graham Barnes at the piano and organ, will be the featured music. That's going to be on the 24th. There you go. Real quick note, too, Red's Trading Post. My goodness sakes, for all your guns, all your ammo, all your accessories, don't go anywhere else except Old Town, Twin Falls at 203 5th Avenue South, Red's Trading Post. They know guns. All the new firearms from Browning, Beretta, Weatherby, Ruger, Benelli, Smith & Wesson, Winchester. And, oh, by the way, too, for all the reloaders out there, they've got all that hard-to-find powder for your reloads. They've got all the knives. They've got all the gun cleaning kits. I mean, they've got everything. At Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls, you stop in and see those good folks today. I got to tell you that this week on Alliance Defending Freedom, my anger is completely at a boiling point over what happened in the state of South Dakota with the governor and his absolute idiocy in the way that they're looking at what's called a bathroom bill. And with me on the phone right now is a gentleman that's been on my show many, many times on behalf of the Alliance Defending Freedom, Attorney Matt Sharp. Matt, good morning to you. How are you?
Doing very well. Good morning to you and your listeners.
You know, Matt, there are times, and I'm 68 years old, there are times I just stand and shake my head as to the idiocy and the incompetency of human beings that are trying to turn the United States into a cesspool. And quite frankly, I point the finger at this South Dakota governor for what he did. Tell us a little bit about this idiotic bathroom bill.
Well, you've probably heard, and I know I've been on the show before talking about it, this new push going on to open up bathrooms so that boys that think they're girls can now use girls' restrooms, and girls that think they're boys can use boys' restrooms, and shower rooms and changing rooms and everything. And we're seeing this pop over all over the country. And so South Dakota tried to do a very common sense thing and pass a law that would say, you've got to use your restroom of your biological sex. So if you're a boy, you go to the boys' room. Girls, you go to the girls' room. But we'll even offer an accommodation. So if you're a transgender student and you don't feel comfortable using the restroom of your biological sex, we'll offer you an accommodation. You can use a single-stall restroom or something like that, but we're going to protect the privacy of every South Dakota student when they're at school using the restroom or locker room. This is a very common-sense bill, a very good bill, and it's sailed through the legislature, the House, to the Senate, and gets all the way to the governor's desk. And the governor caves to pressure from the LGBT activists and vetoes the bill. And in doing so, denies every South Dakota student their fundamental right to privacy.
You know, Matt, explain my audience the repercussions, the bombastic repercussions of what this can do, what this can mean by letting a minority of very few students, one or two, if any, have complete control over the sanity of our morals. Explain exactly how devastating this is.
Yeah. All you have to do is take a young girl in elementary school. She goes to school each day thinking that when she uses the restroom or goes to a locker room or something like that, her privacy is going to be protected. Our society has always been built around that idea that when in these intimate settings, we protect privacy, that there's biological differences between boys and girls, and it's okay to recognize that and to protect that while at school. All of a sudden now, this girl is at risk of growing up in a world where privacy no longer exists, where she no longer has safe places at school where she can go and change and use the restroom. And particularly vulnerable are children that have suffered sexual abuse. Because for a young girl that's been abused to walk out of a bathroom stall and see a biological boy sitting there in her bathroom, and it may be the nicest, sweetest boy in the world, but for her, all she sees is my private space has been invaded by someone of the same sex that harms me. And it triggers psychological harm and emotional harm. And we've heard from parents that have been telling us these stories of their schools that have adopted these gender-neutral bathrooms and the consequences it's having on their kids. This is the consequences of what's happening and why the South Dakota governor's veto is so bad for students. Because this very vocal minority is now stripping away a fundamental right to privacy for every kid in our country, and it's just a matter of time before that spreads everywhere, at every public bathroom and facility in our nation.
Man, I just can't understand why we as a society are caving into this absolute senseless immorality that's going on across our country. Why are we caving into what's called transphobia? Why don't we just come up with right and wrong, black and white, and leave it that way? And if they want to file a lawsuit, go ahead, we'll see you in court.
Yeah, the other side, they're very vocal, and they paint anyone that wants to take a stand for common sense privacy as being hateful and bigoted and transphobic and all of the things you just said, and that's simply not the case. I've met time and time again with parents and students and school officials that support these common sense laws and these common sense guidelines. They don't have any animosity. They don't have hate. They're just trying to protect a fundamental right to privacy and trying to say, hey, we're going down a crazy road here, and let's slow down and recognize students shouldn't give up that right to privacy when they head off to school each morning. And I think it takes our side standing up and saying, you know what, we're not bullies. We're compassionate, and we care about every student. And that's why these laws ensure that every single student, whether they're transgender or whatever their status is, that every single student has a private, safe place at school where they can change and use the restroom. That's not bullying. That's compassion, and that's care for every student in our public schools.
I'm going to come right out and say it, Matt, and I don't care. I mean, I'm blunt, and I'm very boisterous about being blunt and honest. God does not make mistakes. A boy is a boy, a girl is a girl. For this very heinous, very criminal act that is being caught up in American society to absolutely destroy our morals with kind of a unisex society, it's time to fight back before all of a sudden we've lost it all.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that even science is on our side of this issue. You know, a lot of time we conservatives, we get accused of being anti-science, but they're looking at all these studies in other countries, and they're looking at transgender individuals that have had, you know, access to whatever restroom they want and sex change surgery and hormones. And what they're finding is it's not helping those individuals. They still have higher rates of suicide and depression and all of this stuff. So I look at that and say, all of this effort to push this gender-neutral bathroom society that's supposed to be helpful for these kids is not helping at all and may actually be making things worse. Perhaps the most compassionate thing we can do is to help them embrace how God created them, to embrace their biology and to live according to it. Perhaps that is the best thing we can do, and that's what laws like this help reinforce, that you are born a certain way, embrace your biology, live according to it, and that's a compassionate thing to do for these kids.
Well, Matt, again, going back to a very simplistic question on this, where's the backbone of America? Where's the morality? Where's the, if you will, the old Saturday Evening Post front cover of families, boys and girls being boys and girls, men being men, women being women? What happened to our society that we even opened the door a crack for this kind of a problem?
You know, you look back over the years, and we've seen a gradual effort to strip our morals from our public schools. We saw it with efforts to take prayer out of school and start to put all these restrictions on Christian students in school, and now we're seeing even more aggressively opposing ideology put into schools, this LGBT agenda being forced into our schools and imposed on students. And it's all part of this effort by the other side. They want to take kids because they're young and impressionable. If they can mold them and shape them in their worldview, then they've won. Because all they've got to do is wait for us old folks to die off, and then they've raised up a generation that's comfortable with this idea of no privacy and of gender fluidity and all of these things. And that's why we as a society have to step up and not just say, hey, this is not right, and take a stand for it, but get involved in our public schools. The only reason these school boards are adopting these bad policies is because good people have turned over control of school boards to those with an ideology that they're trying to force on our kids. So we need parents to get on the school boards and Christians to become teachers and to get plugged into our schools again and help restore common sense and good morals into our public schools.
Yeah, but Matt, what about the parents? You touched on it, but you didn't elaborate on it the way I really want this morning. What about the parents? I mean, if my children were still in school, they're married and they have families of their own right now, I would absolutely go in the front door of that school, have the superintendent by the necktie or the principal by the necktie, and I'd have my kids out of that school in not more than 30 seconds. What's going on with the parents?
You know, some parents are afraid of all of this and of being labeled as bullies. But I got to tell you, I am encouraged by the number of parents I am seeing standing up on this. A great example is in Chicago. A lot of people may have heard that the Department of Education showed up at the school and told them, you got to allow this transgender student, a boy that thinks he's a girl, to start using the girls' locker rooms and change in with the girls during gym class. And these group of parents, I'm talking over 100 families, standing up saying, no, this is wrong. It's just one instance of we've seen situations like that all across the country, of these parents standing up saying this is wrong. We've even seen them in some places overturn a bad decision by a school and get new policy in place. That's what happened in Virginia. A group of parents stood up and said, this is crazy. We want to protect our kids' privacy. Parents have a lot of power. The courts have said they've got the constitutional right to direct how their kids are raised. So if they will be vocal and if they'll have a backbone and get plugged in and stand up to these bad policies, they can change them. I've personally witnessed it, but it takes courage on their part. And what a lesson to teach to your kids as well. Hey, look how mommy and daddy stood up in the face of something bad. You kids need to do the same. And that's how we raise a generation that's going to return America to its Christian origin.
Amen. Now, Matt, let me ask you this question. There's got to be some insidious, sick, pathetic group that is really financing and pushing this kind of filth in our school systems. Who are they?
One of the big leaders, and you've probably heard ADS talk about them a lot, is the ACLU. They're the ones out there filing these lawsuits against school districts that do have these common sense policies. The case in Virginia, it's a ACLU representing a girl that thinks she's a boy suing the school because they adopted a common sense policy. In South Dakota, it was the ACLU lobbying against that law, knocking on the governor's door, telling him to veto it. And it's all across the country. ACLU and other groups like them are in there pushing these policies that are harmful to children, and they need to be called out on it, because that's exactly what they're doing. It's forcing policies that strip away a right to privacy and are harmful to the fundamental right of privacy to all of our kids.
What about the judges? What about the legal system? I mean, we're talking minuscule numbers here of people and or students that are trying to cause a problem of disruption. What about the courts saying, hey, wait a minute, morality and the family attitude in this country, we can't trash this, we can't allow this. If you have a problem, go see a psychiatrist, but don't turn our schools into a cesspool.
What's been so encouraging is judges are coming out on our side on this issue. There's been 3 cases involving this issue of bathroom access, 2 of them last year, 1 of them in Pennsylvania, 1 of them in Virginia. And in both cases, the judges upheld good common sense policies. And they said, you know what? Schools have a duty to protect the privacy of their kids. And these policies are common sense. It's saying, hey, if you're a boy, you use the boys' facilities, and if you're a girl, you use the girls' facilities, and it's okay to do that. And so we've got the law on our side. And that's why people need to be so encouraged and take a backbone on this issue, because we've got science on our side, we've got common sense on our side, and we've got the courts on our side. So there's no reason we should cower in the face of efforts by the ACLU and groups like them to enforce and impose this very radical view on our vulnerable children in school. Because if we will take a stand and fight these battles in court time and time again, we are winning.
Now, I know that there's other states that have tried this, and I know that even here in the state of Idaho, they tried this idiotic bill, possibly to get it imposed in this area. What other states are we going to be hearing about that are going to try this same kind of idiocy?
Yeah, well, you know, actually, later today I'm going to be driving up to Tennessee. They're trying to pass one of these good bathroom laws like South Dakota did, and just like we saw there, the ACLU and groups like them are mounting their forces against it. We're going to start seeing it pop up in other states. I think Kentucky and Missouri have similar laws. But we're also seeing the other side try and push their laws. It's these laws that create a special protection for sexual orientation and gender identity. Right next door to you guys, Washington just had I think it was the Washington Human Rights Commission, enact a rule that said every public facility, schools, whatever it is, has to allow people to use whatever bathroom they want, whatever gender they identify with. So we need places like in Washington State for people to stand up and say, hey, this is wrong, and get involved and overturn those laws. So we're seeing both our side try and pass good laws and the other side try and pass bad laws, and it's happening all across the country. And wherever your listeners are, they need to get plugged in and get involved and take a stand for the constitutional right of privacy.
You know, Matt, the way this thing is, and I don't mean to sound really simplistic about this, but it's almost like a barbarous society of going back to caveman days. There's nothing really then that could stop a great big 6'6" truck driver from going into a women's restroom or vice versa. I mean, there's no laws anymore. There's no sanity. Anybody can go wherever they please, and nobody can stop them. Is that right?
That's right, because the other side is very adamant. You can't question someone's gender identity. It doesn't matter if they think they're a woman and this is the first day or they've been living that way for a year. It actually popped up in Washington State. I think it was at a gym room, and I think it was a swimming place or something like that, and a man walks in and starts changing in front of girls and women, and no one was even willing to stand up to him. It finally took some women going to the owners and complaining, and their response was, well, he asserts he's a woman, we've got to allow it. And that's exactly what we're headed to. A man could walk in one day, start undressing in front of girls, all of this stuff, watching girls undress, and nothing you can do to stop it, because if that man asserts he's a female, under these laws, he's got a right to do it. And that's why we have to take a stand on this.
And I would imagine, Matt, and I'm going to sound like a redneck here in this response, but I don't care. If it were my daughter, and we were at a restaurant or stopped at a rest place during a vacation, and she went into the ladies' restroom, and out comes a 6'6" truck driver, I'll guarantee you I would want to just absolutely bloody the nose of that truck driver for going in there. I mean, our society has got to have some morals. Our society has got to have some right and wrongs. This is complete insanity, and the governor of South Dakota, Governor Dugard, he should be thrown out of office for not having the backbone to stand up for morality.
Yeah, you know, I'm the same way as Zeb. I've got a 4-year-old daughter, and I have the exact same reaction. We've lost that sense of protecting women. We used to treat women with dignity and respect, and we said, you know what, we're going to make sure women have a safe, private place where they can use the restroom, where they don't have guys bothering them or harassing them. And that wasn't, chauvinistic or anything like that. It's just respect for each other. It's respect 101, and we're getting away from that. And it's like you said, it's because we're losing that sense of morality, that sense of right and wrong, and that sense of, you know what, there's places where people ought to be able to go and use the restroom and change without having to deal with politics and all of this radical stuff the other side is imposing on us. Just a private place where you can go and then perform life's most intimate function. We've got to protect that. It's worth fighting for. It is worth doing whatever court case we've got to do. Even when the federal government comes in and forces this on schools, these schools need to take a stand on this. This is an issue worth fighting for, protecting our daughters, protecting our sons, and protecting their right to privacy.
Now, are we winning or are we losing? Be honest, Matt. I mean, doggone it, you know as well as I do that these perverts are going to try to do this in all 50 states. They're going to try because they've got big money behind them. Are we, thanks to you, the Alliance Defending Freedom, are we winning or losing?
I think we're starting to win. I think people are waking up to see just how big of an impact this is going to have. And they're realizing you can't just say, oh, that happens in Washington State or that happens in Massachusetts or California. It's hitting Tennessee. It's hitting South Dakota. It's hitting Idaho. It's hitting every state in our country. And I think people are awakening to see hey, this is not the world we want to live in. We don't want to live in a world where our daughters and sons give up their right to privacy at school. So we're seeing courts rule on our side, and we're seeing these state legislators overwhelmingly pass these laws. But we've got to be vigilant, and we've got to let people like the governor of South Dakota and other states where these laws are coming up, letting them know, hey, you better support these laws. These laws are important to us, they're vital to us, they're necessary, and they're good. And if you don't support these laws, then we're going to find people who will and elect them into office. That's the consistency and the force we've got to have to make sure that we continue to win this battle, that we don't give up the gains that we've had, but that we make sure that every kid, no matter where they live in our country, has their right to privacy protected.
Matt, you stay on top of this story. God bless you and the Alliance Defending Freedom, and please come back and bring us an update in the not-too-distant future. Matt Sharp with the Alliance Defending Freedom, thank you so much for being on the program this morning.
Thank you, and God bless you and your listeners.
Thank you very, very much. You know, I don't care if one person or two people or whatever is offended out there in Radio Land. This is completely insane. Making allowances for transgenders to go into women's locker rooms, bathrooms, and vice versa? Are you kidding me? What kind of a filthy, no moral society are we headed to? This has got to be stopped. And to the governor of South Dakota, may shame be heaped upon you for your lack of guts to not represent the 99.9% of good families in your state that are very concerned about what you didn't have the backbone to stand up for. Ay, ay, ay. Time for the weather. Weather brought to you this hour by Rogge Auctions. They are having a great big spring community sale. And Kate, if you're listening, give me a call if you would, please. They're taking consignments for this big spring community sale. It's going to be on April 9th, coming up, April 9th. And you need to consign early to get everything on the sale bill. All the farm, livestock, weapons, ammo, ATVs, side-by-sides. They are not going to accept household items in this sale. This is a very high-quality sale and going to be a good one, and it's put on by Rogge Auction. Spring Community Sale. Contact Ron Rogge at 431-6187 or Cade Rogge at 431-0074. Don't miss it, coming up on April 9th. Here's the weather with Gina.
Here's your weather forecast as we get ready to ride in the saddle for the rest of the week. Mostly sunny skies, slightly breezy, winds out of the west right around 8 miles an hour. Expect a high of 53 tonight, low 31 tomorrow. Winds going to be picking up to about 14 miles out of the west, bringing with it some more clouds. Partly cloudy, high of 50 with an overnight low of 33 for Tuesday. Wednesday, more clouds. Looks like a high of 53 with an overnight low of 39, then warming up to 65 possibly, and mostly sunny for Thursday. Yesterday's high was 55. The overnight low was 35. That is your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Thank you very much, Gina, and brought to you by Rogge Auction. Spring Community Sale. Don't forget, taking consignments now for the big Spring Community Sale on April 9th. You get a hold of Rogge Auctions, their website, roggeauction.com. Okay? Give me a call. Come on, folks. There's been not as many calls today. And some of the subject matter that we've discussed absolutely deserves your attention and your comments. So give me a jingle at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. While I'm waiting for your call, I want to remind you about Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Oh, my goodness sakes. They have got some great, I mean, absolutely fantastic furniture buys for you. Whether it's living room furniture, whether it has to do with your bedroom sets, whether it has to do with the Beauty Rest closeout mattress event, whether it has to do with lift recliners or regular recliners, whether it has to do with carpet, you are going to save money. You are going to find a great selection. You are going to find just what you're looking for at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. They're located at 459 Overland in Burley, and the number to call 878-2341. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Talk to me, caller. Go.
Oh, good morning. I can barely hear you. Going right along with what you were just talking about, I've got an article that I pulled up that I've been doing some research, and as early as here in 2012, Donald Trump Foundation sent up to $30,000. This shows up on his 1099 recorded to the IRS. And he sent $30,000 to these groups, just like what you were just talking to with your gentleman, the GLFEN groups, and to promote getting a book printed that has to do with fisting, and also to get all of these agendas into schools. And I believe it had to do with the New York school. I sent you this email. You can check it out, but it's pretty telling, and it's pretty disturbing.
You know, I will say one thing, caller, and I'm down to the last couple of minutes on the program for this hour. I will say one thing, and I mean this when I say it. I think a lot of times, and I'm not at all aiding and abetting any politician, but you know something? They give money away or they support different movements without really knowing about the movement or understanding the ramifications. And with that, I will also say, I damn and condemn any person in politics that doesn't take the time to understand when they're supporting an immoral group that is absolutely doing all it can to turn America into a cesspool.
Right. And in this article also it does go and tell about the other good groups that, that he did give money to as well. But then I think you have to turn right back around and look. And when he will say things right on television in front of, who knows how many children were watching the television, that Mitt Romney, if he asked, would go to his knees and do what we all know he was implying he would.
Yeah, don't go any further than that as far as being explicit or anything else, but let's just leave it on a higher plane and a higher level, that there are candidates, not only Trump but others, that have absolutely not looked at or studied the various situations to which they lend money. But in this particular case that I was talking about with the Alliance Defending Freedom, our morality in this country is right now teetering on the abyss of falling into like the Grand Canyon, and it's about high time you and other people stood up and said, no, enough is enough.
Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm standing.
I know you are.
And I'm asking people to, when they walk into that booth, to mark their vote, think about the things that come out of that man's mouth. And is that really who you want to stand up there the next 4 years? And you wonder if every time he comes in front of a microphone, if you've got to usher your children out of the room.
I got to run, Gwen, but I appreciate it. God bless you for your call. I got to go to the news. Thank you very much. I appreciate your call. Thank you. Got to go to the news from CBS. Coming up next hour, the Idaho Legislative Update. Today with great Senator Kelly Anthony. He's doing a fantastic job. And then at 10:32, we're going to talk to Judson Phillips about the mess in the GOP. So don't go away. Zeb at the Ranch. I'll be back in 6 minutes. Howdy do, hour number 3, Zeb at the Ranch, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and along with some of our great advertisers like Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today, 734-6969. We're going to have our Idaho Legislative Update in just a moment. Don't forget again our good buddy Old Doug over at Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. New location and the name change. Used to be Ted's Diesel Electric Service. Well, Doug bought the business back in 2009, and now he's hung up a new shingle that says Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair at 635 21st Street, Alfresco Road in Heyburn. Number to call, Old Doug, is 878-491-91. Let me say that again without messing it up. Old Doug at 878-4991. You call him, rebuilding starters, alternators, generators, and can sell new ones too. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. Let's go to the phone lines right now and say a good morning. I want to give a little preface to this introduction, though. This man is a new senator here in the state of Idaho, and I'm going to tell you from my own personal experience of working with and talking to a lot of senators, a lot of congressmen, not only here in the state of Idaho, but all over the United States. This man has the decency and a commitment to do what is right, and he's going to be a great senator for us. Kelly Anthon, good morning. How are you?
Well, good morning, Zeb. That was a nice thing for you to say. I appreciate that.
Well, it's well deserved by you, and I'll just tell you like I would tell anybody else. I don't care who they are. You're doing a wonderful job. You're standing up for what's right and decent, and quite frankly, with the way things are in our political and morality fabric in this country, we need more people that have got the backbone to stand up like you do.
Well, again, I thank you for that, and I agree with you. A couple things. One, I like the feedback. I mean, if there's somebody at home that sees a bill that's trouble, that's going to be bad for our community, I need that feedback. I need to know. And so to have your feedback is pretty important to me, Zeb, and also all your listeners. But besides that, there is some truth in what you said, and it is that the government's only so good as the people you're going to send there to run it.
That's right.
And so we need to always, and not just in my race, obviously, but every time we go to the polls, we ought to be thinking about that. And with the upcoming presidential election, of course, that's something that's been on my mind.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. There are pros and cons about who is the best qualified, and I'll be quite frank with you, Kelly. I'm scared to death about Hillary Clinton taking the nomination on the Democratic Party and then possibly becoming the President of the United States. And in jest, one of my dear friends said last night to me, and he was right, if Hillary gets elected president, Canada's going to have to build a wall to keep us out of Canada.
Well, Zeb, let me tell you, I can't agree with you more. I know that we are often told that the election we're facing is the most important of our lives, but I'm here to tell you, this upcoming presidential election, I think, really is. Mm-hmm. And it's because, with the death of Antonin Scalia and his absence from the Supreme Court, we are on a tipping point. And that tipping point will change the way that court runs, either from an activist court, and you've got about half of them there that are activist judges that want to create law through judicial decisions, and those who believe in the real meaning and the intention of the Constitution. Antonin Scalia was one of those.
I agree.
And the issues I worry about, Zeb, are things like our Second Amendment rights. I'm a big advocate of the right to bear arms. And what I see happening is this is now a door for those liberals, for those people who do not think that you and I, living in the Minnecasia area, should be able to own a gun. And they're going to take this door if we let them. And so it's a critical election. You're right. Hillary Clinton being elected will tip that scale. And it could be the beginning of the end for the Second Amendment. In my opinion, I think that we're facing some very, very serious times.
Let me just jump in there, Kelly, because I think you're spot on. Do you know who Grover Norquist is?
I do know him. I don't follow him. I don't know him, I should say. I know of him, and I don't follow him real closely.
Well, he did an in-depth study. He did an in-depth study about President Obama, and he wrote in the latest Newsmax magazine, "Yes, America, the president does want your guns." And the fact is that Obama has made many, many statements in his illustrious career as president against the Second Amendment, and he and Hillary Clinton are looking at the Australian gun confiscation program, possibly to implement it here in America. I'm telling you, Kelly, people don't realize how close we are to a dictatorial confiscation of the Second Amendment.
Well, make no mistake about it. There are people out there in our government who want to see this done. That if you don't believe that, you're just not well informed. And they will, and many of those people, honestly, will tell you they're not interested in it. But you need to look into this. There is going to be a move to restrict guns, and I think eventually take the lead of places like England and Australia and the European countries that have all but disarmed everyone. Now, the way I approach this issue is really simple. I look to the American history that I've studied, and what it informs me of is that in the early days of revolution, we made a decision. We recognized that the King of England wanted to disarm us for one reason and one reason alone. And that was to make us powerless and make us subject.
Absolutely.
And so that is why you see in that first Congress that the founders of our country put together the 10 Amendments, the first of which is our religious freedom. Second is our right to bear arms. And they did that so that the government couldn't run over the top of us again. Now, it's nice to talk about guns in the context of sporting and hunting and all those things, which I love, but that's not really what the founders were after. They were after our right to defend ourselves and to defend our property and defend our families. And so, yeah, that's a pretty important issue, and I think we have to be very vigilant. And boy, I'll tell you, this presidential election is an important part of that.
Well, tie this in for me, Kelly. What are the general thoughts and concepts of maybe perhaps people on the other side of the aisle during the legislative session? Are there those groups in Idaho that are going through their legislators trying to get the Second Amendment repealed?
No, I think what you'd find, Zeb, in Idaho, in the Idaho legislature, is that you will find some on the farther left of the political spectrum with the belief that, number one, you don't need a gun. You know, you'll hear some of that, but there really isn't an effective lobby in Idaho. I think primarily because they just know they're not going to get anywhere with the Idaho legislature. We're fairly conservative. We come from these rural backgrounds for the most part. I think that's going to change over time. But I haven't seen, and I don't think you will see in Idaho, a push in our state legislature to do much for gun control. But I think you need to keep your eyes focused on our national leaders, our members of Congress. And I think luckily in Idaho, we have a very pro-Second Amendment delegation to Washington, D.C. Now, you will see some gun bills coming through the state legislature. I haven't seen them in the Senate yet, but we are discussing constitutional carry. We are talking about things like should convicted terrorists be given the right to bear arms when they're released from prison, those kinds of things. But again, very conservative. As a matter of fact, there was a bill, Zeb, that came to the Idaho Senate that would have taken away your gun rights if you were convicted of the felony of public riot. And that went through the House, and I actually, the more I researched that, the more uncomfortable I got with it. I voted against it, as did the majority of senators, and it failed. So there's I think again, I don't think we should be diligent, but I don't think Idaho's our problem. I think we need to look to the national government and our national Supreme Court.
Well, you mentioned in the opening remarks about how important this election is for the presidency, and it looks like now it's narrowed down to 4 people, 2 on the Democratic side, one of which is a communist and a socialist, the other one's a felon. Oh, great choice there. And then on the Republican side, it looks like Donald Trump and very perhaps Ted Cruz. So, what are your thoughts about what's going on with both parties?
Well, I think in the Democrat Party, and I'm trying to be careful not to offend all my friends and neighbors that are Democrats, because I do like them. As a matter of fact, I will tell you something, Zeb. The Democrats we have in the Senate are I just really like them, and they are very conscientious. They're hardworking. I admire them in a lot of ways. We just don't always see eye to eye on issues, but great people. And I think that's the case with Democrats in Idaho generally. But when you look at the Democrat Party nationally and you look at the candidates that are currently there, what you see is, I think, the true colors of where the Democrat Party has gone in recent years. If you were to look back 50 years ago at the Democrat Party in the United States, it's a whole other animal. And many of my friends, I could go through a list of wonderful people in the Minnecasia area that are old-time Democrats. And I guarantee you that they share basically the same values that you and I do.
I agree.
Whether it be guns, whether it be religious freedom, whatever it is. And so things have changed inside the Democrat Party, and certainly these candidates are a reflection of that. They are far left. They are big government. They are big tax and spend. And I don't think they pay too much attention to our Constitution.
Well, Kelly, wait a minute. This is such a great conversation because I want you to elaborate on this just for a moment. Why then are we as conservatives, why are we playing cowards? Why are we in the closet scared to open the door and really shout out what's going on with liberals today? It seems like when the Republicans won their last election, they took the control, they took the majority. They really haven't stood up on their hind feet yet and really said, this is what we're going to do. Why is there such timidity on the Conservative Party side?
You know, Zeb, I wish I had the answer to that. I think about it, and I think that you take like a Jim Risch from Idaho. He is seen as quite a conservative. I think he was labeled the most conservative member of the U.S. Senate. Utah sends some pretty conservative delegates to the National Congress. But I think that you just have so many different, regions of the United States in play. And I think that there's the money factor, Zeb. I mean, you cannot discount the money factor. Everybody has an interest in getting a legislator, even in Idaho, and everybody is willing to put a little bit of money to that. And so there's certainly that factor to it. I think also, Zeb, and I hope this answers your question, but what we're seeing socioeconomically and culturally in the United States over the last, let's say, 200 years especially, is a real change in the way that we live. You know, 200 years ago, everyone was a farmer. Mm-hmm. And today, that's just not the case. And so what we see is more and more urban votes. If you look at the maps, you see very clearly that the conservative votes are not taking place in the urban centers.
That's right.
And let me just say, Zeb, I think in Idaho it's going to be a slower process, but we're going to see this. I think about this all the time. I think one of the most important jobs I have when I walk into the Capitol is to protect agriculture. Because as you look at Idaho and we get more and more people moving to the urban centers, that means less and less delegates will be coming from the rural areas to our own state legislature. So when we elect somebody, especially from our area, we got to make sure these are going to be people who know agriculture, they're going to defend agriculture, and they're going to make sure that that industry is not harmed for the rural area.
Yeah, but wait a minute, Kelly, do you see, as now you're an old hand up at this legislative session, but do you see a lack of respect or a lack of commitment to agriculture? And when I say that, you being an old farm boy, you know that America or any country that can't feed itself with its own agricultural program becomes subservient to another country that can.
Well, a couple things you mentioned there, Zeb, is one, I'll just touch on this, and then I'll answer, I think, your primary question is, we always have to look to agriculture as our way of defending ourselves.
Right.
Just big picture stuff. Agriculture is a key part of your own self-defense. That's just a no-brainer to me. It's interesting, I've spent a lot of time in Japan over the years, and Japan recognizes this. They know that they don't have a great capacity to produce commodities, food, and so they guard it with huge government subsidies because they're afraid that if they ever have all their food coming from somewhere else, they could never defend themselves. Mm-hmm. But to answer your primary question, Zeb, I think the Idaho legislature is very pro-agriculture. I think that still runs through all of our blood pretty darn good. And I think that will stay that way. But again, I'm telling you, the more that Boise, the Treasure Valley grows, you will see less and less of our legislative seats coming from rural areas. Now, that's not to say those Boise folks won't be pro-agriculture, and I'm not saying they are now, but boy, I think we better pay attention to that. The other thing is, more and more of those people won't have that same background like you described, Zeb. I mean, I grew up on a farm. I own farms today. So we have to educate those people that are in the legislature who don't have that background. And even on the floor this year, I've talked about the sugar beet industry, and I've told the legislators, and I look to certain ones of them, and I say, let me tell you about the sugar beet industry. We're talking over $300 million in gross net receipts for the state of Idaho. This is a big deal.
Absolutely.
You need to work with us. And it was in the context of some trucking legislation. But yeah, Zeb, agriculture is a big deal for our economy. it's a big deal for the United States to make sure that it's doing well, even if it's for national defense reasons. And besides that, it's just a darn good way to live.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I chose to live in the Burley-Rupert area. The reason why I'm living on a farm out in the middle of Declo. And that's because there's no better place to raise a family. And so we got to defend all that and make sure we protect it.
Amen. Kelly, I've got about 6 minutes left in the remaining time of this legislative session. And most of the guys like Fred Wood, Scott Bedke, yourself, you have kind of pinpointed that at the end of March it should be pretty much wrapped up. But is there any one particular subject or a group of subjects that may throw a fly in the milk and make the legislative session extend itself time-wise?
I don't think so, Zeb, and I think, and again, I'm not one with great experience here, but what I'm seeing is from leadership a real feeling on both sides of the rotunda, both houses, that we need to get home as soon as we can this year. I'll tell you what I honestly think a lot of that is election year. But I think we've got some important legislation coming around. Let me tell you about a couple of them, Zeb. I mentioned the last time I was on there was a Senate bill that would have drastically altered Kaja School District's school board zones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to tell you that bill was defeated in the Education Committee of the Senate. That would have been in my opinion, a very bad thing for the Kansas County School District, more than the Minidoka School District, but especially Kaja. So I'm happy to report that. The other thing is, today or tomorrow we're going to be presenting a bill. I'm going to be carrying it on the floor, and it's to protect our public infrastructure from things like terrorist attacks. So I don't know if you followed, Zeb, but here in Ukraine about last week, their whole electric grid went down.
Mm-hmm.
And as I understand it, it was I call it a terrorist attack, but it was hackers from Russia that sent that whole system down. And
absolutely.
If you look at our national security advisors, they're telling us this is a matter of when, not if, in the United States. So this bill will protect places like City of Rupert, City of Burley, City of Declo, having to disclose through a public records request sensitive public infrastructure information to somebody who might want to harm us. As it stands right now, I could walk right into Rupert City Hall and say, give me your emergency response plan if there's a terrorist, and I'd have to give it to them. There's some changes that we're going to be making in that statute. I hope that passes today. I'm pretty sure it will.
And right there, let me interrupt you for a second, Kelly, and say this, that we're an open society with open information in a free society of America. But right now today, because of terrorist activities and the whole world spinning out of control, how much should we let remain open, honest, and forthright without trying to cover some things up for our own protection and security? Where do you draw the line?
Well, that's a question that we are going to be facing for many, many years to come. And I care very, very much about government transparency and the involvement of our people in knowing what the government's doing. But, it's just like the military. You don't, and we've seen some of this, you don't broadcast over the television what your military plans are before you send in the troops. And you don't let terrorists know where the weak points are in our electric infrastructure or what our software looks like. We've got to be smart about that. And what we're doing in Idaho, which is a good thing, is we're involving the press club, we're involving the publishers of newspapers, the Freedom Foundation, those people who care about these issues. They're coming to the table, and I think we've got a bill this year that'll be a good one.
Absolutely. I've got 2 minutes left. Anything else real quick? Kelly, go ahead.
Well, I don't know. It's not that great of an issue. I think I'll tell you the other bill I'm going to carry probably today or tomorrow is some changes to the Idaho Probate Code. This is where, I guess, for what it's worth, and maybe no one will agree with me, but me having my legal training and being a lawyer kind of comes in handy in the legislature. There's a bill that has to deal with how you deal with the divorce in the context of having a will and some of that stuff, and it certainly does need to be cleaned up. If you can imagine, Zeb, getting married, you draft a will, you get divorced, but you never change your will. And your will says that your ex-spouse of 30 years ago is still your personal representative or your executor, those kinds of things.
Ooh.
We're trying to clean some of that up, so that's a bill that'll be coming around. That's Bill 1300 as amended in the Idaho State Senate. So, that's not as sexy of an issue, I guess, as exciting, but that's something that's coming around today, too.
And the budgets are all pretty much set and in stone?
The budgets are still in the works, but some of the core pieces of the budget certainly are in stone. And you're going to see an increase in education spending there, I'm told. Again, I haven't voted on that stuff yet. That's coming out of committee. But, yeah, and I think that's probably necessary. We need to see some increase in education spending. But, yeah, the budgets are nearly there, I think, Zeb. And so we're on Zoom at this point.
I want to compliment you. You are so forthright and very honest and energetic. I really appreciate it. Senator Kelly Anthon, God bless you, and we'll look forward to having you on the program again real soon in the future. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks so much, Zeb. Appreciate your time.
Take care. Idaho Legislative Update this week with Senator Kelly Anthon, and Kelly is doing a very good job. We got to pay some bills here real quick, and I want to remind you that on Thursdays we have a segment called Cassia County School Days, and it's sponsored by two wonderful businesses. First of all, A Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley, and oh my goodness, they're really optimistic. Spring is coming, and they've got all the spring clothing over there, and they've got all the fun toys and games and puzzles, and they've got all the Cherokee scrubs. What are you waiting for? Get in there and shop today at 1308 Overland in Burley, A Child's World. Also want to say thank you very much to Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley. Life-saving colonoscopies, nasal and ear surgery, dental procedures, to name some of the outpatient surgeries they provide at Ambulatory Surgery Center, and they can save you hundreds of dollars. Call 677-8888. 677-8888. Ambulatory Surgery Center, along with The Child's World, bringing you school days in Cassia County on Thursdays. By the way, again, tomorrow, very important day. It is primary voting day in the state of Idaho, but also the Cassia County school bond election is tomorrow, and at all the polling places around the Cassia County area. And I was very, very grateful to the people of the school board for being on our program last week. I think it's a real necessity to get this taken care of. Once again, that school bond election tomorrow, and we urge you to go vote. Right now, we're going to send it back over to Wheels at our main studio, and in just a few moments, we're going to have the founder of the Tea Party Nation, one of the largest Tea Party groups in the country, Judson Phillips, on our program, so you stay tuned.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KVAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to our last half hour on a Monday. And this gentleman's been on my program in the past, and I've always enjoyed having him visit about politics. He's the founder of the Tea Party Nation, one of the largest Tea Party groups in the country. Good morning to Judson Phillips. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, Zeb, good morning. I just want to know, who are you accusing of being a gentleman? Because nobody's ever said that about me.
Well, you know, in my program, I always try to start the interview off with a real nice movement, and take it or leave it, it might get worse as we go along.
Well, hey, listen, you also called me sir, too, and I always tell people I'm too young to be called sir.
Well, I noticed in the picture you are quite a bit younger than I am, but I want to get right into the issue at hand, Judson, and I hope you don't mind if I call you by your first name.
Oh, please do. Please do.
Let's talk a little bit. I don't even want to get into the Democratic side of the aisle this morning until later on in this interview, but I want to talk about the GOP right now. The GOP, in my opinion, and I want you to tell me if I'm wrong, is in such disarray, like a huge jigsaw puzzle with about 37% of the pieces missing, with Trump and with Cruz and with Rubio and with the debates that have turned into catfights. Can they, the Republicans and the GOP, put this thing together in time to defeat the liberal Democrats for the presidency?
Yeah, the way I would answer this is old story, as I am a lawyer. The difference between a good lawyer and a great lawyer, if you ask a good lawyer a question, he gives you the answer. If you ask a great lawyer a question, he says, well, it depends. And the answer in this case is it depends. Can the GOP get its act together? It depends on what happens next. If Donald Trump wins the nomination, I think it's going to be a disaster. If Ted Cruz wins the nomination, I think it will be good for the Republican Party. And in full disclosure, I am a Cruz supporter. But here's the disaster scenario for the Republican Party. If they don't have a clear nominee going into the convention in Cleveland, and the Republican establishment tries to pull a maneuver and put Mitt Romney or some other moderate in as the nominee, you're going to see the Republican Party blow up. I've already said I won't vote for Donald Trump if he's the nominee, but if they put somebody like Mitt Romney in there, hey, I'm not voting for him either. Conservatives will go out one way, the Trump supporters will go a different direction, and suddenly you'll see what was once the Republican Party turning into, at minimum, 3 different political parties, maybe more than that.
Well, Judson, there's no way then that Hillary won't have access to the Oval Office. You can't have a split party, and they've got to either get behind the nominee if it's Donald Trump and or Ted Cruz. But once you have a split party and a split ticket, you've divided the votes, and Hillary's a shoo-in. That's my opinion.
Okay, number one, Hillary Clinton, the only thing Hillary Clinton will have access to is her prison cell. Okay? Hillary is going to be indicted. Now, let me go into this real quick, and for the benefit of your listeners, I am a lawyer. I spent 10 years as a prosecutor, 15 years as a criminal defense lawyer. They've just given her, the Department of Justice has just given her IT guy immunity. Right? The Department of Justice does not do that unless they believe this guy can deliver somebody much higher up the food chain. That's Hillary. Friends of mine in D.C. are telling me that Joe Biden is just strutting around waiting to swoop in to take over from Hillary. And the indictment, there is so much there. The Department of Justice literally cannot do it because the FBI would resign, the FBI leadership would resign, and honestly, the intelligence community would leak so much it would totally destroy Obama's legacy. So it's not going to be Hillary Clinton. It's probably going to be Joe Biden. But think about what happens then, and I know you didn't want to go into the Democrats too much, but it's worth going into very briefly. Here's what happens then. If it's Joe Biden, you have a similar blow-up in the Democrat Party. The party fathers will not let Hillary Clinton run with these indictments hanging over her head, and they're not going to let Bolshevik Bernie Sanders become the party nominee either because they know there's no way he's going to win. Sanders people punch out. Some Clinton loyalists punch out. You'll have the Democrat loyalists left, but guess what? You have a shattered party. We literally could go into this fall as the last election where you have the Democrats and Republicans as major parties in the United States of America.
Yeah, but Judson, we're talking about 8 months. All these scenarios have to play out, but the American public, the American voter, deserves better treatment than what they're getting. And let me back up and say this, and I want you to respond to it. The GOP is the group that honored and welcomed Donald to come into their fold if he signed their agreements and everything. And now the GOP is trying to chastise him and throw him out under the bus. So really, they've fragmented their own party on their own behalf. They're the ones that really are at fault, are they not?
Well, yes and no. Or as the great lawyer would say, it depends. They welcomed Donald Trump in, but you've got a perception problem. When Donald Trump was welcomed in, Donald Trump, I think, thought that meant, hey, I am now going to be the nominee. I'm free to win this thing. Well, guess what? Some Republicans may have a different opinion. And unfortunately, Donald Trump's definition of being welcomed in and his pledge is it's violated if people run against him and people don't coronate him as the Republican nominee. And so you've got a real issue there. Again, I think that Ted Cruz is the best and perhaps only chance to nominate or to unite the Republican Party. I mean, holy cow, you've got Lindsey Graham, who 2 weeks ago said you could murder Ted Cruz on the floor of the Senate and the Senate would not vote to convict the person who did it. Now, Lindsey Grahamnesty, is now turning around and saying, look, if we want to stop Trump, Cruz is the guy.
Okay, with Cruz being the guy, are you stating that you are almost lead pipe sure that we're going to have a brokered convention in Cleveland?
No, actually, I don't think we'll have a brokered convention. Although, again, to quote my now favorite phrase, it depends. All right, here's what we're looking at. Trump seems to be capped at about 40%. He just can't really break through that 40% barrier. All right, if he's only getting 40% of the votes, that even with what he's got right now, that's not enough to get 1237, which is the magic number. If Rubio drops out, because if Rubio really believes what he's saying about Donald Trump, number one, he should see that he's got no pathway to victory, and number two, he should realize that if he really does want to stop Donald Trump, the only way he can do it is to drop out and throw his support behind Cruz. So Rubio is now a distant second place in Florida, and Cruz is surging in Florida. If Cruz closes that gap and Rubio is now third place in Florida, it's game over for him. Ohio, John Kasich, they're both on the both Ohio and Florida are on the same day. Kasich, if he doesn't win his own home state, he's got to go out as well. Although the Kasich base, I don't know where they go because they're not really. Kasich is the most moderate candidate still in the race. He is, his supporters, I don't think really fit in well with the conservative movement. I don't think they fit in well with Trump. I don't know where they go.
But what about the Trump supporters? Talk to me a little bit about this, Judson, because you're very well versed in this. What about the millions and millions of people that like Trump? They like his tough guy attitude. They like his not being involved in politics. They like somebody that's going to turn things upside down for America. What about them? Who are they going to support, or are they going to be turned out in the cold?
Well, they're not going to be turned out in the cold, but what are they going to do? Let's say I'm right, Ted Cruz wins, Donald Trump does not win, and I'm talking about a fair fight where when they go to Cleveland, Ted Cruz has the number of delegates he needs to win the nomination. Some of them are just going to walk away. A lot of those who've been voting in the Republican primary for Donald Trump are Democrats and independents, and not card-carrying Republicans. So then it becomes, who do you like? Do you like Ted Cruz? Do you like Joe Biden, who I think is going to ultimately be the Democrat nominee? Where are they going to go? I think they would go to Cruz rather than go to Biden. Some of them may just check out and not vote at all. But Ted Cruz, one of the things I like about Ted Cruz, I've had the chance to meet him on several occasions and talk with him. The guy is brilliant. There is something called the Great Blue Wall. States that have gone Democrat in 6 of the last 6 elections. And that constitutes 242 electoral votes. Somebody's got to smash that blue wall. And I think Ted Cruz can do it. Now, in fairness, if Trump were the nominee, I think he could probably take a lot of those blue states away as well. But the problem with Donald Trump is I believe he's still a New York liberal who's just telling us what he wants. He's marketing to people right now to get their votes. And I'm not concerned about winning the election. I'm concerned about what happens after we win the election. And if we elect a guy whose track record is that of a New York liberal versus Ted Cruz, who's saying is he's a consistent conservative, what are we going to end up with? Are we going to end up with the functional equivalent of Hillary Clinton in the White House if we get Donald Trump? He's given to more Democrats than he has Republicans. He's given to the Democrat Senate Campaign Committee, the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee, no corresponding contributions to the Republicans. So I've got to believe, based on 30 years of his history or 40 years of his history, as soon as he gets elected, he's going to tack left, and that would be a disaster for America.
Yeah, but Judson, I don't mean to beat this horse to death, but I'm still interested in the scenario. Let's pretend that it's the 9th inning, and there's 2 out, and you're 3-2 in the count, and that's what it looks like right now with Trump train going down the tracks, racking up all these victories. How do you perform a last-minute rally to beat Trump, even with Cruz? I don't see it in the cards. Do you?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, let me take your baseball analogy for a second. We're not in the bottom of the 9th. We're maybe at the top of the 4th. Okay, the magic number to win is 1,237 delegates. The delegate totals are fluid right now because not all the results have been finalized. Donald Trump has roughly 300 to 350 delegates. Ted Cruz has roughly 250 to 300 delegates. Again, the number, you're going to get varying tallies from varying sources because the numbers are not locked down yet. So Ted Cruz, I saw one poll that showed, one tally that had him only 20 delegates behind Trump, and I think that one may be a bit of an outlier. I hope it's true because I'm a Cruz guy. I think it may be a bit of an outlier, but I think it's reasonable to look at Cruz being only 50 to 60 votes behind, or 50 to 60 delegates behind Trump, and only a quarter of the delegates have been selected yet, as of now. So it's at best top of the 5th, and so we've still got plenty of time, and we're moving into a lot of areas where Cruz should do well, particularly the closed primaries where Democrats and independents don't come in.
I've got to ask you this, because I know you're a student of politics, but you have to be, even though you don't like him, you have to be in awe of the Trump campaign for what he has accomplished and how he's done it, even though he has offended a lot of people. He has left a lot of people in the dust wondering how in the world he's got as far as he has. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Looking at it right now, not as a Cruz partisan, but just as a guy who's been a political junkie all of my life, I'm sitting here looking at Donald Trump, and not necessarily his campaign, because I'm not that impressed with his campaign, but Trump himself as a candidate is he's been able to do things that no other candidate has been able to do. He's been able to do things that should have sunk there. That if it were any other candidate, it would have sunk him. And whoever is going to be the next Republican candidate, either Cruz in the fall or whoever in 2020 or 2024, they need to learn some lessons from Trump, not on his policies, but how he is doing things. And I'll give you an example real quick. Trump sets the morning news cycle. He is calling into every morning news show, the national news shows, almost every morning, and he's setting the news cycle, and everybody else is having to react to him. And he is masterfully controlling the dialogue. He's also, one of the things about Trump gets 64 times the air coverage of any other candidate. And so that's massive for him. That's an incredible, that is literally billions in free advertising for him. And now that's going to change once, if Trump becomes the nominee. Two things. Number one, I think the media turns on him in a heartbeat because I think there's some skeletons there that they're sitting on. And number two, it's Trump versus whoever if he's the nominee. And guess what? It's not going to be a 64-to-1 news ratio. It's going to be a 1-to-1. And particularly when you have places like ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, the Karl Marx channel, as I like to refer to as MSNBC, their coverage of Trump is not going to be favorable. It's going to be extremely negative. And Trump is riding a wave now, but they're going to cut him off at the knees.
But wouldn't you say, Judson, a lot of what your last statement was could be also applicable to Ted Cruz? The establishment doesn't like him. Most of the Republican Party doesn't like him, but they bear with him. What about if he's elected? Is he going to get the support necessary from the GOP?
If he becomes the GOP nominee, he will. The Republicans have endured 8 years of Barack Obama in the White House, and while as a general rule, I do think that the Republican establishment would rather have a conservative lose, or would rather lose with a moderate than win with a conservative. At this point, I think they want the White House so bad that they will accept Ted Cruz. I mean, Lindsey Graham, again, the quote I gave you 2 weeks ago, he was saying somebody could murder Ted Cruz on the floor of the Senate and the Senate wouldn't vote to convict, to him coming around and saying, well, we could unite behind Ted Cruz. One of the interesting stories about Ted Cruz is when he was on the Federal Trade Commission, he was policy director for the FTC under George W. Bush, and he came up with all these great policy innovations and ideas for the FTC. And almost every one of them, because the FTC has 3 Republican commissioners and 2 Democrat. Now it's reversed because who has the White House. But he was able to get the Democrats to sign on to his conservative policy agendas. So when Ted Cruz gets the nomination, I think he's going to be able to reach across the aisle, so to speak, to the moderate wing of the GOP and get them behind him as well.
What does it tell you as a political analyst about America in general when on the other side of the aisle you've got an avowed socialist/communist running along with a woman that absolutely is a fraud, a liar, and a cheat, and she might get the nomination? What does it tell you about the naivete of America?
It's alarming that half the Democrats are voting for a guy who is an avowed socialist. Alarming doesn't even really do justice to what I'm thinking right now. He is just, you think about it. How many years ago? It was just a little over 30, 35 years ago, or maybe it's 25 years ago. I'm having a... Hey, listen, you know why I'm not a mathematician here. 25 years ago, 1990, 1991, the Soviet Union came down, the Berlin Wall fell. Socialism was destroyed. And we all saw how bad socialism is. We see how bad socialism is in Venezuela. Here in America, people wait on food. Food waits on people here. In Venezuela, people wait on food. In Venezuela, they can't get toilet paper. The biggest smuggling operation right now is smuggling powdered milk into Venezuela. That's socialism at work. Yet, guess what? You have half of the Democrat electorate who thinks socialism is a good idea. That is not a good thing for America.
You know, I really appreciate your taking the time to come on my program. Last thought, as we look at whether it's Trump, whether it's Rubio, whether it's Cruz, or Hillary versus Bernie, what about the state of America? This next election, I think, will be the most critical for our future forever. What are your thoughts?
I could not agree with you anymore. There's a Russian sociologist who's been predicting for years that America would break up. And the way he shows that America breaks up shows he doesn't really understand America that well. But his initial premise, I think, is correct. And if we don't have a president who is set on making America, I don't want to use the term making America great again because that's Trump's line, but making America united again, making America love this nation, bringing us together. If we don't have a president who's doing that, I really do see this nation breaking up in the next 10 years. We will no longer be one nation, indivisible. We'll break up into 2 or 3 or 4 separate independent nations. And I don't want to see that happen.
Amen. Judson Phillips, I really appreciate your remarks this morning. Please come back in the near future. God bless and have a great day, sir. Thank you again.
Thank you. Have me anytime.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. The man that's the founder of the Tea Party Nation, one of the largest Tea Party groups in the country, Judson Phillips, and I'm very honored to have him on my program this morning. Thank you very much. Hey, we've got to get a weather forecast in here right now, and the weather is brought to you by my dear friends at Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call, 324-7657. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. You know what? If you're getting a little money back on your taxes, it's tax return meat bundle time. Listen to this. 70 plus pounds of beef and pork and chicken for only $249 plus tax. Wow! Great eating. Your hometown meat cutter, Scarrows Meats in Jerome. Right now, here's the lovely Gina with our weather.
Here's your weather forecast as we get ready to ride in the saddle for the rest of the week. Mostly sunny skies, slightly breezy, winds out of the west, right around 8 miles an hour. Expect a high of 53 tonight, low of 31. Tomorrow, winds going to be picking up to about 14 miles out of the west, bringing with us some more clouds. Partly cloudy, high of 50 with an overnight low of 33 for Tuesday. Wednesday, more clouds. Looks like a high of 53 with an overnight low of 39. Then warming up to 65 possibly, and mostly sunny for Thursday. Yesterday's high was 55. The overnight low was 35. That is your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
She does a great job, and I love that background music. Thank you, Gina. And it's brought to you by Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call, 324-7657. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Thank you very much. Oh my, let's see, tomorrow on the program, going to have some real heavy hitters, and I want to stress tomorrow is primary day, primary voting day. Please go to the polls, and especially for the residents of Cassia County, the Cassia County school bond election tomorrow, please go vote tomorrow. Don't forget that. Open forum tomorrow, we're going to have at 8:06 to 9 o'clock with your calls and your comments about various subjects. And then, of course, at 9:06, Frosty Woolridge. And then at 9:30, one of my very favorite guests from New Mexico, Marita Noon, is going to talk about energy or the lack thereof and carbon taxes and everything else that this government wants to impose on us. And then at 10:06, Dr. History. And we don't yet know who the replacement is going to be for 10:30's guest, but I'll have that tomorrow morning. So you stay tuned. Going to be a good program tomorrow. Well, I have a moment, and I want to remind you about your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Oh, my goodness, nice people. Nice people that really care. They've got all your tires, and introducing the Backcountry All-Terrain Tire for the pickups and the SUVs, exceptional all-season performance and very aggressive sidewall and extra tread channels to evacuate water, mud, and snow. Ooh, this is a good tire for you. You check it out today at any one of the 7 Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, serving you. And I'll tell you something else, too. They got a lot of custom wheels over there to kind of dress up your four-wheeled wonder, and the best in brake service. You know that, with professionally trained technicians and shocks and struts and front-end alignments and the best in batteries. Good heavens, they care about your safety. You stop in and see Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Pole in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, absolutely the best. We've had a lot of interesting stories and interesting people on the program this morning, and I've had many people say again, and I want to revert back to an email, how do we get the cow pies and coffee cups, my weekly blog? Well, just go to zebbell.com, and you'll see all the information as to how you can get it, and click on, give your address, your email address, and we'll make sure it gets sent to you once a week, cow pies and coffee cups. And, of course, my webmaster that's doing a great job, John Ellis. We really appreciate him. And then don't forget to listen to this program if you're out of the area. Go to zebbell.com for the audio, and you can also watch it with our cameras that we have mounted here in the studio. All of that and more. We'll be back on again tomorrow morning. Yes, we will be at 8:06. We'll ride the horse for 3 hours right here on K-Bar, 12:30 a.m., and also zebbell.com. And there's a young man over at the studio that is doing an absolutely wonderful job, and I don't thank him enough, and I should thank him every day. He gets all puffed up like a little old fat toad, and he's doing a great job. His name is Wheels. And Wheels, I really appreciate the effort that you're putting into the program to keep everything nice, tight, and precise. Thank you for what you're doing over there.
Well, thank you, sir. You got me pretty gritty over here with my grin on my face.
Well, good deal. And don't forget Lunch Bunch. It's coming up early this month of March. It's going to be next week on the 17th on St. Patrick's Day. So be sure and wear green and bring your grandma.
Yes, sir, will do.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06. God bless everybody. The way things were are the way things ought to be. We'll see you tomorrow morning.